Welcome to Fortune Cookies Tarot. It is World Politics Wednesday. I'm Annabelle. I'm a tarot practitioner and psychic for over 35 years. And in this video, we are going to be talking about the federalization of the DC police force. So this is something as a law enforcement family that we have discussed at length. And one of the concerns of many local police forces is the federalization of police forces, having a brown shirts kind of organization that will supersede and oversee the police work that's done in smaller capacity, be that state, county, or local. So we're going to break it down. We're going to see how this is going to affect Trump, and I'll be right back. Welcome back, Tarot fam and my political fam. So you guys know that I love politics. I come from a very, very politically oriented family. We do discuss it at the holiday tables, much to my husband's chagrin. But on August 11th, 2025, President Trump invoked Section 740 of the DC Home Rule. This federalized the Metropolitan Police Force, we'll call it MPD moving forward, and it deploys 800 National Guard troops to Washington, D.C. This is a first in history. Attorney General Pam Bondi now oversees the MPD, and deployment may last up to 30 days pending congressional approval. There's a lot of critics about this. So some will say that Trump is flexing authoritarian power and that he is amassing a favorable army for himself. Some of these critics are DC Mayor Bowser, Attorney General Brian Schwab, Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton, and civil rights groups like the ACLU are labeling it as unprecedented and overreach, like I said, with a little bit of that tyrannical rule that we have from Trump. The threat to home rule and democratic norms especially is underscored because violent crime is actually declining significantly in DC. So we're going to take a look and see what is spurring this on, if there's some concerns that are going on with President Trump. But as I do that, I'm going to bring up the card view. We're going to talk tarot, maybe pull some Lenormand. Before I do that, make sure you hit the like button and make sure you book a reading with me. I have lots of readings available. Like I told you guys in my last few videos, I have three readings a week that are available where you can name your own price. I wanted to make my readings as accessible as possible. I know some people are going through some economic struggles and they still need some spiritual guidance. So we have the name your own price reading. That's an hour-long reading with me one-on-one through video. Or if you have a quick question, my text and WhatsApp readings are available. You can ask me one question. I'll send you a voice message. I'll send you pictures. We'll get it done together. But that's very reasonably priced as well. And then I have my standard hour-long readings, which are deeply discounted for the remainder of the summer. We're going to have a psychometry class that is coming up on the 23rd of August. So get ready for that. I'm going to have the link set up today or tomorrow, and we can start talking about how you can learn how to do some psychic stuff with me. So I've been teaching psychics for a long time, and I would love to teach someone just like you. So hit the like button. Let's bring up those cards and let's giddy up, Buttercup, and see what is going on with this federalization of the police forces in DC, the MPD, as we said. So what underlying fears or motivations are spurring this on? What underlying fears? Destabilization of the delicate balance that is in our nation's capital, or the United States capital, if you're watching from outside of the United States. So there is some destabilization. So I'm wondering what this is. The delicate balance. Is Trump seeing dissension within the White House? Ah, yes. Ah, yes. So those with whom he once was so those that once curried favor from Trump are not really doing it. I think the excitement, the smash, boom, bang, the firecracks of having Donald Trump in the White House for the second time, and just reminding everybody, he's only been in since January, so we're looking at going on 9 months here. We're going into the 9th month. I do think that there are more voices that are pushing back against the things that he's doing and trying to prevent the course of actions that he is taking in terms of leadership. We all heard the whole story about the Rose Garden. It's now paved over. Everyone's like, what in the Palm Beach? Honestly, I think it looks lovely as long as the roses are there. Having it paved out is not a bad thing. It's a beautiful white, it matches the White House. It looks great. And now they can stand there and not be sinking in the grass. If it's raining, they'll be able to have press conferences out there and whatnot. So I do think that he is seeing more and more people pulling away from him, and even to the extent of not becoming an enemy, but becoming an adversary in the course of his actions as president. So I think there is some issue with that, some issue with the people that formerly stood firmly beside him. Is this a response to threats on the White House, politicians within, and even the president himself? Is this in response to threats? Fascinating threats. Yes, yes, yes. I believe that there have been more attempts on the president than we are aware of. We did see the televised one, of course. Everyone saw that. It was the shot heard around the world. And in my opinion, it was a timeline shift for everyone on the planet, everyone in this particular existence. But I think that there have been more threats. And I think the actuary design of this is, we're running out of chances here. We're running out of bullets to dodge. So I think that federalizing the police force really is born out of some threats that us as the public are not aware of. I do think that there have been some pretty severe threats on him. So, is it a flex of power? Let's just see that. Let's just see if this is representative of a flex of powers. He's asserting his authority. Is Trump asserting his authority? Now, what we would look for typically for assertion of authority, the devil card can be one, emperor can be one. There's some other cards that can be an assertion of power. Hierophant may be one, but protection, if we're looking at just protection from threats, external threats, we would see things like that 9 of Pentacles, the 4 of Coins, that sort of kind of hanging on and protecting. Not so much the Empress. Some people would say the Empress is a protective power, but I do think that that is more of a protected power that has several layers of protection on it. So let's see. Is this a flex of Trump's power? What did I just say, guys? I just shuffled the cards. This is about protection. This isn't about flexing authority. This isn't about showing off. This isn't about having the biggest you-know-what in the locker room. This is about protecting his family. was just going to say his family, protecting his family. There we go. There we go. And there we go. Not this kind of power, but this is protection against the actions of other people. So I do want to remind everyone that since prior to the election, I think it was prior to the election that I first saw this. I did a meditation and I saw Trump giving a speech from the back of a moving military vehicle. He is in a work attire. He's in like a white kind of shirt. He does have a tie on. I don't know if he has a jacket on, but he's giving a speech from the back of a speeding military vehicle. He's almost like not shouting into like a microphone, but shouting into like a megaphone. And, very similar to the fight, fight, fight. I will forever tell people about that. I'm, hoping it's not a psychic score, but I do think that we will eventually see that. We will eventually see some chaos. So let's look at this decline in crime. So what message is being sent by federalizing the Metropolitan Police Department during a downturn of crime? What message is being sent? Wheel of Fortune and the cups. The message that is being sent is that there are haters out there, that there are individuals that do not like the administration that is in place right now. I think that has been abundantly conveyed by many in the mass media, or mainstream media, mass mainstream media. So I think that this is the message that's being conveyed. How is that picked up by would-be fascinators? How are they picking that up? So they are picking it up as an opportunity. Now, I hate to say it, when I pulled up that Six of Cups, I immediately saw JFK. So JFK was a turning point in United States history and in United States politics. Gregopedia has an opinion about the last duly elected president. It is not JFK. I think he believes that it's Roosevelt was the last elected president and that the rest have been just kind of put into play. Let's put it that way. We'll have to ask him when he is nearby, or maybe he'll comment in the comments. But I think he believes that Roosevelt was the last elected. I have a different opinion. I think that Kennedy did get elected. I think he was extremely popular. I think there was a little push behind the scenes to get things done from Joe Kennedy, but not to digress. I don't want to digress too far. So I think that the enemies of the state, and I'm going to say it that way, enemies of this particular administration are seeing that there's more and more opportunity, and that binding and banding together is not a bad idea. Let's hope that that does not happen. Is that what the Trump administration is worried about, that there are enemies banding together? Is the Trump administration worried that enemies are banding together? They are more worried about chaos. They're worried about events happening and chaos ensuing. The protection of the first family is foremost. And we all know that Barron is away at college. He is not, well, right now he's not. I'm presuming he's not. But this really is about protection of that inner sanctum, the inner people, trying to make sure that nothing bad happens there. So I think this is done in earnest. I think there are things that we don't know, but what are the ramifications here? Legal scholars are warning that potential violations of the Posse Comitatus Act, which restricts military involvement in civilian law enforcement, and the constitutional principle of anti commandeering under the 10th Amendment. So we really are blurring some lines here. Trump is blurring some lines. This order is blurring some lines. This mirrors past controversial deployments like Operation Legend, which was 2020. Federal forces were deployed during protests, and it raises constitutional red flags and presents possible legal challenges ahead. Now, that was one of the things that the legalization of marijuana is a great example of this, because many states have legalized either medical or recreational marijuana, and it remains federally not legal. So this presents some unique issues with dispensaries, growing facilities, and personal usage or medical usage, because literally, if there are lawsuits in any capacity, it could actually become a federal case, if you will. So this too could represent federal cases in the event of detainment, arrest, those kinds of things within DC. So for individuals that are arrested for protesting, acting about, any kind of unrest that is related to the political sphere. So we could wind up, if there's any involvement with those deployed troops, with federal cases. It could happen. The political fallout is reinforcing the calls for DC to become a state. So for those of you outside of the United States, Washington, DC is a district. It's the District of Columbia. That's the DC part of it. It is technically not a state. There have been calls for it to become a state. The right is very anti DC becoming a state because it is a very liberal and blue district, and they would get electoral votes as a result of that. So it would tip the scale somewhat. Same with Puerto Rico becoming a state. Anytime we add a state, we get more electoral votes, and that could sway the elections moving forward. So this spotlights the city's unique vulnerability to federal outreach. It is a very unique city in terms of the United States. It is very, very different from any of our other states. So does this legal showdown mark a precedent-setting moment in federal versus local power dynamics? Is this going to create a precedent for us moving forward? Let's see. Gestation. You know what, guys? I think it does. I think we are going to see a relaxing of the standards for deployment of federal forces. I think once this happens, we have an argument in some of the redder states where they will be faster to call in federal forces now, and faster to get them approved, because if crime has turned down, if crime is less prevalent in DC, and now we've deployed these forces for this clandestine reason, other states can do that. So example, Texas, Arizona, any of the states on the border, can they say, well, we had 3 crossings today, we need federal forces all along the border. This is going to open up a whole can of worms, in my opinion. And I think that this is the move. I do think that there are genuine reasons for the deployment of this police force. I do think that there are genuine reasons for it. However, I think that there is a longer range plan, and there's a bigger reason for this. So I think this is attempting to set a precedent for the criteria of having federal forces deployed to your state. So if we see some mounting court challenges, will Trump double down or step back? He rarely steps back. Let's see if he's going to double down or step back. So if we see a lot of court action on this, trying to fight against it, are we going to see more push from Trump? He's not going to budge. He is not going to budge. And this is going to be determined as the safety, sanctity, sovereignty of the United States. That's where he's going to go with that. So, will it galvanize the movement for DC becoming a state? And what this would do, and again, for people outside the United States, the federal government is the umbrella, but the states, they hand a lot of power to the states. And that is really one of the beautiful things about the United States. We're all under one amazing document called the Constitution. And if you haven't read it, go read it. It is an amazing document. Years ago, we used to have civics classes where kids would study the Constitution, and they've gotten rid of those. And as a result, over the pandemic, I forced my children to read it over kitchen table, and they know a little bit. They know a little bit. So if DC is turned into a state, it will have much more sway over its likes and dislikes. Legal, social, civil, whatever. So is this going to galvanize that movement for DC's statehood? So we're not looking at Trump, we're looking at the people that are pushing for statehood. Is it going to galvanize that movement? We've got looking to the past. Yeah, they're as much as they would like DC to be a state, there isn't enough there to you have to look at DC as like it's just a really big city that doesn't belong in a state. It's kind of a city unto itself. As much as they would like it to, I don't think that is going to catch fire. I think the historic implications of DC being the seat of our federal government is just going to stick. I think they're going to continue with that rallying cry of, hey, let's make DC a state. It really should be its own state. No, I don't think it's going to happen. I think we'll hear about it. I don't think we're going to see that happen. So this move of Trump's is really going to escalate the rural-urban divide and Trump's law and order branding. So it's going to appeal to his right base for strength, but it's going to alienate Democratic and urban audiences because they're going to see it as, well, we've got the troops, got the brown shirts running in, or the orange shirts, whatever they are. Polling suggests that there's widespread concern among DC residents. The majorities feel angry and scared over potential authoritarianism. Authoritarianism. Is it? I think I said it right. So professional operatives, legal scholars, and the media may treat this as a case study on executive power, and they likely are going to underscore Trump's bombastic personality and political style where he just runs roughshod over civil liberties. They're going to see it as, there's going to be brown shirts on every corner. I'm going to keep calling them brown shirts because that's what everyone is afraid of. Private individuals, especially in DC, may feel like this is an intrusion into their daily life, that there's going to be an omnipresent law enforcement, and that in and of itself is going to be critical of the civil and social identities in those areas. So let's take a look at how this is going to affect that whole milieu in DC. So is this going to deepen the sense of urban disenfranchisement or distrust toward the federal government, specifically the Trump administration? So is this going to deepen that disenfranchisement? Yes, we're going to see some destructive powers there. And curiously enough, I do think that we get this protesting, like we're going to come in, we're going to protest nicety, nicety, nice. And then we get this destructive element that rears its head. We get both of those. That is what happens. So, is it protests that go bad? Probably. I am getting the sense that, and, say what you will, January 6th, I had friends that were there. And on January 6th, my friend that was there, a very good friend of mine who actually had some legal fallout as a result of it, said that there were individuals that were acting amok, individuals in the crowd who were literally trying to gather up people and spark some kind of an action. And he found it very curious when he was on site, and then found it curious in retrospect after he was arrested and indicted. So I do think that perhaps we see some protesting that is in earnest and legitimate, and that is followed up with some troublemakers that show up. So I do think that is going to happen. So will this create fertile ground for collective response? Judgment, death, yes. So this is inevitable. This is partly the fuel in the powder keg and partly the spark. So I think the fuel in the powder keg right now is the distrust and dislike of Donald Trump and his administration. I think the spark is going to be adding this next layer of protection, which really is what the federal troops are. It's another layer of protection. I think not revealing the genesis and the reason for this is going to cause some problems. Real quick, I'm going to divert from my questions here. If Trump and his administration, not just Trump himself, there's a whole bunch of people there. He's not the only man in the room. If the administration, the Trump administration, reveals that there is legitimate cause for this, would this calm things down? Yes, absolutely. If he frames it as there's a potential for destabilization of the nation's capital, that he's doing this to care and protect the nation's capital, I think that we will see much rejoicing, but there is going to be some judgment there as well. Overall, we get a de-escalation of the situation, and we get more people that understand and become Americans. Remember, in the days after 9/11, we saw such an increase in national pride and Americanism because we had a focus for a common enemy. Don't want to talk about 9/11 because I have my own opinion about it. But I do think that what we would see in the wake, after the shock wears off, what we see in the wake is very, very positive in terms of being an American and not being a Democrat or a Trump hater or a Trump lover or yada, yada, yada. Um, so at the end of it all, could this deployment of federal troops plus the outrage of the public and certain quarters of our political systems, could this prompt positive and deeper civic engagement, activism, legal reforms, mobilization toward DC statehood, or maintaining DC as a city, as a District of Columbia? Is it can it promote some positivity in this? Can we move forward in a positive fashion? Yes. What are the steps to get there? So this is our yellow brick road. So where is the road we are on? The road we are on is seeking and finding answers. Seeking and finding answers. From the high priestess, we always ask the right questions and then we get the answers. What is our Tin Man, our best friend, best friend are going to be the people that are destructive, the people that are speaking and calling the loudest for the stopping of this are our best friends. Why is that? Why is that? Because they seem reckless, foolish, and also that they are walking away from the problems that are evident here in the United States, the imminent threats against the stability of the government here. Our ruby red slippers, where are they going to take us? Into conflict, but what do we learn from that? I've got a pop out here that sometimes that wheel of fortune, there are bad elements here that do need to be taken care of. What is underneath? 10 of Wands. So I think we're going to flush out some individuals that have come to the country to do bad things. I am not saying immigration, every single person that came over the border is a bad person. They do terrible things. I'm not saying that at all. That's not what I'm suggesting. But I do think that this is going to flush out some more individuals. So this is some positivity that comes out of it. So if there are individuals that cross the border with ill intent to dismantle our government or to do harm to our government or our government officials, I think we're going to see that. And I think that is one of the positive things that's going to come out of this. So Emerald City, where do we wind up at the end of this all? 1, 2, 3. So this is learning lessons from not keeping things in hand. The strength card, the young woman in the strength card is taming this lion. And unfortunately, with certain animals, a firm but gentle hand is needed forever and anon. We see that with the infinity symbol over her head. Sometimes we need to keep that pressure on to maintain control, maintain balance, and maintain our dominion over our wildest and most reckless and animalistic impulses. So that is truly keeping control over the craziness of hyper emotionality. I'm hyper emotional. I get it. I need logical people in my life. That's why I married a Capricorn. Over here, the Hermit in reverse, not paying attention. So not maintaining control over those animalistic impulses and not paying attention to the actual data, not compiling and looking at the data with this in mind as well. Really, really keen. Falling asleep at the wheel is definitely detrimental to us. So I think our yellow brick road where we wind up here, I think a lot of people are not going to want to look at the data, or the data is going to be concealed about the potential threats against the president and the administration that is in play right now. So interesting stuff. Where do we wind up in 30 days right now? 30 days, in 30 days. Where do we wind up? Do the troops stay? Do the troops go? Do we have a reason to keep them? Do we have 8 million reasons not to keep them? So where do we wind up at the end of 30 days? In 30 days, done, done, done. In 30 days, I think there will be something very different that happens. I don't think that they will keep them there. I think in the 30 days, we are going to have to let them go. I don't think we get congressional approval for that. And here, I think there is something that is different that happens within the Metropolitan Police Force. So, what happens there? They are going to have to think outside the box. They're going to have to revise their practices and better equip their personnel. Partnering up. That is very interesting, so that things can calm down and relax. So I think it's going to be a very interesting period of time within DC coming up for the next 30 days. So I do wish all of our politicians the safety and sanctity of going to work. And I would like to see our nation's capital stay safe and sound and not have any kerfuffles in there. The last thing we want to see are riots on the street and craziness amok. So I hope you enjoyed this reading. I hope you guys learned a few things. I learned a few things in my research on this, and I'd love to hear from you. So let me know in the comments what you think they should do in DC. And if you're outside of the United States, I'd like to know what you would think if your governments did something similar, if they put into play military forces, if they augmented the police forces, if they suddenly increased the personnel that they had protecting and serving. I'm very, very curious about what you think. As a former police officer wife, I heard that as a retired police officer's wife, I am all for safety and precautions, but some of you all may not be. Some of you all may have a very different opinion about that, and I'm here for it. So let me know what you think in the comments. Again, if you'd like to book a reading with me, there's a link down below. You can jump in there. I'd love to see some of you over the next few days. I am going to be off on Saturday. I'm going to be having that procedure done, so I'm going to be nice and loopy on anesthesia, but I will keep making content for you guys up until that day. And Greg and I are talking about what we're going to do for Supernatural Saturday. We actually did a spontaneous live last night. We did a live remote view to see where Cutie Patootie had her kittens, because she did have them somewhere on our property or somewhere on the neighboring properties. So we think we figured out where it is. And I saw her last night, and she came from a very interesting angle. So we're going to have to take a peek in there maybe a little bit later on. It's supposed to be pretty hot today, so we may have to pull those kittens and bring them onto the porch. So between Greg and I, the chat, we got 5 kittens, but we think only 4 made it. I had lots of psychics in the chat last night. So it was super fun. And it was nice to have a lot of my Australian and New Zealand viewers in there. They got alive. They got a little wild live. So I will definitely be talking about this topic. I think it's very interesting, not from just the political angle, but from the law enforcement angle. So thank you so much for watching. Remember, please like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the future. Tomorrow is going to be Ghislaine Maxwell. So stick around for Thursday. We're going to be talking about that gal.